All right. So it's been over a month. Uh, Kind of fell off the train a little bit, so sorry you couldn't get more frequent updates. I mean, it's not going to make much of a difference to you, but it's been over a month, so my recounting of events might be a little skewed. So my last video, looking back, was September 24th of this year. So September 24th, what has happened since then? Um, we had a hurricane come through. We got outer bands, didn't really hit us directly, so it was rough for those who were affected. Um, our location in Tampa Bay got hit really hard. My heart goes out to them for that. Um, well, actually, that was the one in October, but this one we still caught outer bands of. But this one hit Tallahassee, sorry. So yeah, the one that was in late September hit Tallahassee, I think. Either way, splitting hairs here. So we had Hurricane then. I gave my SLS presentation. Well, I had to submit it, and I did give it. Um, I had my APP exam October 1st, anesthesia phys exam October 3rd. I gave my SLS presentation October 4th. Had my airway midterm, went and did more volunteering. Had to reschedule the INM exam. I went to my friend's wedding. I had farm exam 2. Had INM exam. Did more volunteering. Had a meeting. Had anesthesia phys exam again. So you've missed quite a lot, but I'm sure it kind of makes sense as to why I hadn't been giving you the progressive updates. Also, sorry, I'm just throwing up like this. So if you have any doubts that I try to dress up for the camera, I'm sure those are now dashed. But anyway, let's go ahead and kind of recount what's been going on. So we'll start with probably just the academic side. So let's go through it. So last you heard from me was September 24th. So the first thing I got on my calendar was I had my SLS presentation due. So SLS, I'm pulling it up on my monitor. SLS is the Student Lecture Series. It's basically a class where me and my classmates go through, we're given an assigned topic. So mine was anesthesia with neuromonitoring. And our entire goal is to make a 20-minute presentation on that topic. So mine was anesthesia with neuromonitoring. All slides, including title slides, it ended up being 41. And I delivered, it was about a 23-minute presentation. I think I did pretty good on it. I got my grade back, I got 100 on it. But what I mean by pretty good is I think I really tried to put myself in the position of a professor and tried to explain the material in a clear and concise manner. Now, anesthesia with neuromonitoring is an incredibly complex topic. It's one of those like iceberg topics where you, from an outside perspective, you can see the tip of the iceberg, but once you look below the surface, it's insanely deep. More than I could ever condense into a 25-minute presentation. So I was really just hitting the highlights, and that was kind of my goal, was to just go through and hit the highlights. I think I did a pretty good job of it. Thankfully, I did pretty good with the public speaking aspect of it, which is ironic because here I am filming my academic life for it to be posted on the internet. I've never been the best at giving presentations or like public speaking. I can do okay at it. It's just not my strong suit. Much in the same way that, even though I'm extroverted, I can still go hang out and have fun at a party. It's just, kind of not so much my norm, I guess. So, either way, I did pretty good in that. Pretty happy about it. I did make one mistake. I added in some slides and forgot to change a page number. But all in all, that's kind of minor. So, Not so bad on that. Pretty happy with my performance. So that was SLS. What do we got next? APP exam 1. I really liked the professor for that class. He was really funny, really nice guy. Did good on that exam, thankfully. I had heard from upperclassmen that that class is... Okay, I'm not going to use the phrase easier than the other ones, but I'll say I heard it was more straightforward. In that some professors will try to have like double layer questions where it's like, if A happens and leads to B, what does that mean for C? Um, what I heard going into his exam was he kind of just goes, if A, what happens? And I can appreciate that. So, did pretty good on that exam. Anesthesia Phys was the next one. That one, which one was that one? That was number 2. That one, all of those exams seem to be pretty conceptually heavy. It's just kind of the nature of the material. So that's anesthesia physiology, which is basically, we'll take a look at an organ system. So for that exam, it was renal. So we'll take a look at the kidney. And the entire point of that class is, or I'm going to take this off, I feel like it's making noise. If you have the kidney and you give this drug, what happens? How does it work? And how does this drug affect the kidney? And does that mean you need to change the surgery? And like how does all of that work? So it's a very conceptual heavy class. Like remember how I said for APP, what I had heard was that it was if A then B what C? This is exactly that class. If A then B what C? It just goes down the road like that. It seems like it's one of those classes where either you're good at it or you're not. I've heard it's very polarizing, where my dog, where either you're really good at it or you struggle in it, and it just depends on whether or not you're good at application. For instance, I struggle in pharm, which is something I'll talk about in a minute, but I'm really good in anesthesia phys. Other people, they're really good in pharm and struggle in anesthesia phys. So it just kind of depends on, I'm not going to say luck of the draw, but just kind of depends on what learning personality you have. So that was that. I gave my presentation on the 4th. Excuse me, sorry. Did pretty good about that. Airway, man, airway was, holy crap. Was it really? Okay. Sorry. Airway was 3 weeks ago. That's what I was surprised about. I'm surprised that was already 3 weeks ago. But airway midterm was 3 weeks ago. Again, I like that professor. He's really nice. Very straightforward. It can be kind of a monotone class for me in the sense of like, this is going to sound not necessarily derogatory, but it's going to make the course sound cheap. There's only so many ways you can talk about a subject before you kind of are just repeating the same information. But the professor really tries to go through it in a way where you have a big broad topic and you try to chip away at it slightly. It can come across as a little repetitive because you're spending 2 some odd hours breaking into one small topic. So there is going to be some redundancy, but I feel like the redundancy in this class is by design. I was happy with my performance on that exam. I feel like it went pretty well for me. And then we had the bigger hurricane come through. Not Helene, but the other one that I just forgot the name of. And that one really hit Tampa hard. I mean, really hit Tampa hard. If I'm getting my dates right. So that campus they had to evacuate, which was crazy to me. Anyway, so we had a long weekend, basically. Went to my friend's wedding on Saturday, and then had pharm exam that Monday. I'll just be completely straight up. I am not happy with my performance on that exam. So there's different ways to study. right? I feel like that goes without saying, right? Like you can do flashcards, you can write out all your notes again, you can listen to the lectures, you can try to get hands-on with it, you can try to conceptualize it. I mean, you can try to do so much. I feel like the way I chose to study for that exam was ineffective, and I feel like for the amount of studying I put in, I should have done better. And I'm not saying that's a comment on the class. I do think that error was on my part. So I know what changes I'm making going forward. I've already started to implement them. But it does just kind of suck thinking that, I could have done a little bit better on that. So just kind of got to keep plugging away at that. I'm hoping I can see the improvements for exam 3. But, I'm really good at the application-based stuff. So if you say, all right, you have compromised renal blood flow, what could be the cause? I can think through the process of how different things would impact it. So, like, I could rule out, like, okay, well, if it's constricted blood flow, it can't be dopamine because dopamine, it's a vasodilatory agent. I'm like, okay, could it be propofol causing it? Well, if it's propofol, that's going to increase your mean arterial pressure. So it's like, oh, okay, and you can kind of run through it like that. I'm sorry, propofol decreases it. So I can run through it like that, but I feel like for pharm, it's a lot of just memorization. There's no real way around that, I feel like. It's the drug dictionary, basically. You can't conceptualize a dictionary. You kind of just, you gotta know it. And that comes with time. And I didn't give myself as much time as I should have. So, implementing that change going forward. I'm not happy about my performance, like I've said like 4 times now, but I'll go ahead and leave that where it is. And we'll move on. Then we had the I&M exam. I&M, instrumentation and monitoring. Trying to think of how I can describe it where it's not like a big deal. So part of the reason I'm not saying like professor names and stuff is A, professors are subject to change. B, if I don't want to give them any unnecessary attention because I know that they could get, like emails, or if somebody happens to know where they work, they could get a bunch of questions about it. And I'm just I haven't asked for their permission. There you go. I haven't asked for their permission, so I'm just not saying anybody. Where was I going with that? I don't remember. Anyway, I&M exam. Instrumentation and monitoring. So basically what we do, I'm also trying not to give away any trade secrets, but what we do in that class is we'll take an instrument or a monitor. So we'll go with a pulse ox. Alright, so if you don't know what a pulse ox is, if you've ever gone somewhere and they're like, alright, we're just going to put that little clippy thingy on your finger and it's going to tell us about your heart, that's the pulse ox. It is the pulse oximeter. Basically, it uses light to compare your beat-to-beat blood volume in the arteries. So it works off of a bunch of different factors, and you learn about those factors. You learn how it works, why it works, what changes can affect it, how do you read it. If it reads like this, what does that mean? If you do this, what can you expect? What kind of and you take the one instrument, the little clippy, and you have a 2-hour lecture on it. So it's very helpful in my opinion. I do sincerely like that class. Mainly because you actually get to, all the monitors you see, you actually get to learn about them a little bit more. So I like that class. I was happy with my score on that exam. Had a little break for a little bit. Oh yeah, and then that was last week. Last week, we had our ACLS checkoff. So what that basically means is, ACLS, Advanced Cardiac Life Support, or life-saving, depending on who you ask. Basically, what that is, so BLS is where, oh, I'm walking at the park and it's like, oh, that guy's passed out. Let me go check on him. Oh no, I need to do CPR. I need to do CPR, and you're like, oh, grab me the AED. That's BLS. ACLS relies on you being in a medical setting, whether that medical setting is in the back of an ambulance, in an OR, or anywhere in between where you have access to medications, you have access to defibrillators, you have access to drugs. Thought I heard my dog getting into something. So the whole point of ACLS class, hey baby, is going through and figuring out, okay, you have to diagnose what's going on. So if the person's bradycardic, tachycardic, has a malignant rhythm, I say malignant, what I mean is a rhythm that is harming the heart. So brady, tachy, has a symptomatic rhythm, whether or not their rhythm is bad, can you shock the rhythm? So you have to be able to identify what's going on in the patient. You have to identify if they need treatment, and if treatment, which treatment, and why not the other treatments. And then you actually have to do it. And then if it's an OR setting, you also have to have the defib, and then you're going to have your whole OR team keeping track of what's going on and things like that. So basically, that entire class is built around you actually have to do it. Now, obviously, we don't just go to a hospital and wait for something bad to happen. We have our anesthesia mannequins, which are basically just real life-sized, I'm just going to call them dummies, where if you do CPR on it, it will register that you're doing CPR and it will give you a readout. If you give epinephrine, it will tell you what the epinephrine did. If you give amiodarone, it will tell you what the amiodarone did. So, in effect, we have a synthetic human on the table. We start the case like normal. So we're just sitting there, we go through our induction, or we start pre-induced, whatever your professor wants. And then all of a sudden, you're just sitting there, and then you'll hear something. It might be the heart rate spiking, it might be the heart rate dropping, you could hear the pulse ox start tanking, you could hear any number of things. And your job is to take the patient from the, I'm just going to flat out say, from the oh shit point, and you have to get them back. That is the entire premise of ACLS. And it is easy to do on paper, but when you are doing it, it is a challenge, put it like that. I forgot the name of one of the drugs, and it took me, now this is time I wouldn't have in real life, right? It took me 30 seconds to come up with that drug's name. Because I was sitting there, I was looking at the rhythm, and I blanked on the name of the drug. But I ended up getting it eventually. But anyway, your whole job is to diagnose it, treat it, know why you treated it. And then, let's say you overshoot it, right? Or your solution causes another problem. Well, now you got to run through that problem list too. So let's just say the patient had pulseless VTAC. You give epi, CPR, you deliver your first shock, and all of a sudden, bam, they are now asystolic. It's like, well, what can you do? You have to fix it now. You went from A, now you're at B, you got to fix B. So you have to know what to do for asystole, which is you just have to give epi and CPR, epi, CPR. And then if eventually you get a shockable rhythm, then okay, you got to shock it. Like if you're in VFib, all of a sudden you're like, all right, we're somewhere, you got to shock it. And then you have to know what drugs you can give, how often, when you can give them, and you just got to run through it. And man, in the moment, it's tough. And I am the worst at the tachycardia, what's it called, flow chart? That is my weak point. And that's where I forgot adenosine. I mean, I've gotten better at it since then, obviously, because hindsight's 2020, and I was like, oh, that's my Achilles heel, I need to get better at it. And I've put in the work, and I can confidently say I am better at it now. But man, when you're in the moment, and you're sitting there, and you hear your pulse ox desetting, and you look up, you see what was mine? Actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say. I mean, it's on the algorithm, if you know the algorithms. Mine was SVT, and man, there was a whole stuff that I'm not really gonna get into, but I guess that's kind of the point of this channel is to get into it. We couldn't figure out how to make the dummy display SVT, so the lab coordinator person said, okay, it shows VTAC, it's actually PSVT. Or I think they just said it was SVT. So I was like, okay. So I'm going through, doing my thing, and they're like, all right, what can you do? And I said, all right, you'll do this, which was synchronized cardio verb. And they're like, okay, how much? You do this. Perfect, it's ineffective. What can you do now? What drug can you give? And I'm sitting there looking at VTAC, and I keep forgetting it's SVT. Now, granted, you can still give adenosine for VTAC. I'm pretty sure. I have to double check on that. But anyway, because I was looking at VTAC, for whatever reason, it took me out of having adenosine as an option. But anyway, so that's kind of... It changes your perspective on things when it's actually like, oh, it's me who has to do it. I feel like everybody who's a student, from my experience, everybody who's a student comes in thinking, oh, I'll run it, it'll be, I'm hot shit, it'll be good. And then you come into it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you don't have time to think. You just gotta do it, and you have to do it accurately. Because A, you want good patient outcomes. B, you need to follow the algorithm or else lawyers will get you. And C, you want to save the patient. Which I know I said twice, but man, it's something. It was... I feel like everyone comes in a little bit falsely confident. I know I did. But then the moment it is you at the head of the bed, it is you with the fake syringes, it is you who's telling your buddy, do CPR, you grab the defib, you write down what's happening. It's different. Also, doing CPR on those mannequins hurts. See, real humans, we have some give, and we have like a little bit of skin and all that kind of stuff, and we're not mechanical. Dude, those dummies, I can't think of an equivalent of like the stiffness, because you can feel like the clicking as you're going after it. And I'm not a big guy. Like, I'm kind of lanky. So I'm sitting there going after it, and I'm like starting to ache, and my hands are getting sore because there's no... Like, you can do this, you can switch it, you could do this number. I mean, you can do any number of things, and it's gonna hurt. And you gotta tough it out. So I did a full, 2-minute shift of CPR, and then I came back and did another one. Man, it takes it out of you. So my advice for that, every single person has to do compressions at some point. That's just how it works. So wear some pants that ain't gonna start to fall down a little bit. I'm not gonna say I had a little plumber's crack, but I will imply it. So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. Wear some tighter shorts or pants or some scrubs, I guess, and make sure you cinch them pretty tight. If you have elastic ones, I'd recommend wearing them that day. But anyway, so that was that day. Let's see what time. Oh, we got it pretty good. Hearing and vision. So we did more volunteering. I did more volunteering. I can't remember if I've talked about it, but that's basically where... I don't know if it's just our campus thing or if every campus does it, but basically our program director reaches out to a local school district and says, hey, we've got a bunch of students here. Is there anything we can do to help you out for the health screenings? And of course they're willing to take the help. They desperately need it. So what we do is we'll have a group of about 8 students, give or take, and we'll all go to an elementary school. So I'm not going to say a name. So we go to an elementary school, and we help out we do height and weight, hearing and vision, and then we also, height and weight, hearing, and then vision. Yep. So we have little stations set up, and what'll happen is
However, the volunteer coordinator will say is she'll basically draw up a racetrack of like, all right, students are going to go from hearing first, then vision, then height and weight, and then they're done, or they'll, however it's drawn up for that location. Students will pick their location, like in the rotation. So I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna do height and weight, and somebody else will be like, all right, I'll do hearing, and someone's like, all right, I'll do vision. They bring in a class of kids, and you just do whatever your job is. So for height and weight, you're like, all right, step on that scale for me, big guy, and they'll step on it, and it'll tell you their weight. You write it down, then you jump over to height, and then you just check their height. Vision, there's like a weird. It's not like the all right, cover up this eye and tell me what you see. It's like okay, 7, 8, and it's not like that. It's like a camera looking thing. They'll point it at the kid, and they're like, all right, look at the dot and whatever, and it takes a scan of their eyes like really quickly, and it can tell pretty accurately what's going on. So it's pretty low effort on our part. It's just time consuming, especially if you have a shortage of people. So we'll do that. Hearing one is like the standard, like okay, what do you hear? Not what do you hear. All right, raise your hand if you hear something. I'm like okay, and then you just kind of ping it back and forth. I mean, it's honest. I'm not gonna say it's okay. I hate to say it like this. It's not too draining on our end. I mean, the biggest thing is the traffic getting to some of these places. Like I had to drive like 35 minutes to get to one of them through 8 a.m. traffic. That was probably my least favorite part. But once you're actually there, it's honestly not bad. You do kind of have to learn how to work with the kids, especially if you have um, the younger kids are a little bit harder to corral. I think we go from kindergarten to like highest I did was fifth grade, so like K through five. But usually the bigger kids are like, okay, I've done this before, I know what to do, and they'll work with you. Little kids, it's kind of like herding cats in some cases, where it's like you try to stand them up straight so you can measure their height with like the little thing that pushes down on their head. You're like, all right, stand up big and tall, and then you look over and they're like on their little tippy toes, just trying to get every little. Like, okay, buddy, just flat on the ground. And you gotta work with them, um, which is a good skill to build. Especially in the anesthesia world, you have to learn how to win people over in a matter of minutes, and especially challenging in kids because if you have, you know, 58-year-old Ronald who's here for his cabbage, coronary artery bypass graft. He knows what's led up to this. He knows, like, all right, I smoked too much, I ate too much, and that's why I'm here. I know how a hospital works. I can talk to doctors. I scheduled this appointment. So they kind of know why they're there. They might be wondering, why are you having me stick my tongue out? But for the most part, they understand what's going on. But if you have a kid, let's just say the kid got into like, I don't know, let's say the kid was involved in a MVA and motor vehicle accident, and they're coming into the hospital. They don't know who you are, why you're there. I mean, all they do is if they're like a little 5-year-old kid, they're looking up and like all these grown ups are like asking them a bunch of questions. Maybe they're trying to get an IV in. Maybe there's so much going on. It's kind of I'll say it's the direct job of anesthesia to be able to comfort those people. And in specific, like kids, it's very important. You have to approach them differently, and I feel like that's kind of why our program directors chose this as volunteering as opposed to anything else. Um, so it's good to kind of go ahead and build up those skills because if you have a kid, let's say you're at the vision thing, and you're aiming a little camera at them, and you're just like, okay, buddy, stare at the pretty light. You're gonna see a red dot. Just look at the red dot, and you're aiming it at them. You're trying to get that good view, and you have to focus it on them. And if they're over there doing this number, like, hey, boy, they're just like all over the place. You kind of have to learn how to tell them what you need them to do without being like, hey, bud, you need to do, and like really in their face. And that's a good skill to have is how to be able to approach, I'll just say how to approach kids and be nice, but still get what you need done. So, good skill to go ahead and start to build. I just don't like traffic. That if you know me, you know I hate traffic more than I hate the majority of things on this planet. Traffic is my enemy. But anyway, it is my biggest minor inconvenience in my life. So then we had. Did I say the name of the place? I can't remember. I think I might have. Might have to go back and blur that out. I might. So if there's a cut early in the video, you know why. But I'll just say that, well, we partner with them. I'll have to go back and post and get rid of it. Anyway, there's your behind the scenes moment. We had a meeting with one of our, how can I say this, partnering anesthesia groups. Oh wow, my hair's a wreck today. You guys are seeing it raw today. Yeah, whatever. We had a meeting with one of our partnering anesthesia groups. So basically the way rotations work is you'll have all of the second year students are going to be assigned a hospital or a group. So if you have a hospital, let's just say you're at, I'm just going to make up a hospital. I don't know if there's a hospital in Jacksonville called this, but I'm just going to call it St. Thomas. Let's say you go to St. Thomas. You are either working with St. Thomas Hospital, so you'll be at that hospital directly, or you'll be with a group. So let's say it's Thomas's anesthesia group, whatever. Or we'll call it the St. Thomas Anesthesia Group. Might as well stay on this, right? So if you're with the St. Thomas Anesthesia Group, that group might hit 4 different hospitals in your area. So one day you'll be at Hospital A, maybe the next day you'll be at Hospital B. And that's my current understanding of it. I mean, I might be incredibly wrong, but that's what I currently think it is. So, one of our St. Thomas anesthesia groups, we had a Zoom call with them. It was basically all of the campus on a Zoom call with them. All of the CAA students on a Zoom call with them. And as with any business, it's kind of the nature of it needs to be beneficial both ways. I mean, you wouldn't have Adidas collaborating with Kyrie Irving. I don't know. Is Kyrie? Anyway, you wouldn't have an athlete partnering with a shoe brand if both didn't benefit. Shoe brand makes more sales. Athlete gets sponsorship money. Both parties benefit. So if St. Thomas Anesthesia Group is out here saying, all right, we'll accept your students, what benefit does that do them? It adds liability onto them. They're probably going to be a little less productive. It is an extra set of hands if things go bad, but they're still going to have that level of liability. So what's in it for them? Well, at least as far as we're concerned, we are a hiring opportunity. We're still students, but it's kind of the expected path that if you're a student, you work your way towards graduation. So the whole MO is basically that we send them students, and in return, they get to have the chance at hiring people. So one of the components of that would be the Zoom call, where they basically say, all right, we have positions open at St. Thomas, and we are looking to hire some of your students. So we will go through, tell you what our benefits are, we'll tell you all about us, you can ask questions, here's how we all work, and if you're interested, give us a call. Which is pretty cool. I think it's a very non-invasive way of going about it. I do think it is mutually beneficial. So, indirectly, I have had my first job offer. It's not direct. It was an open application. But it was basically come work for us. So, with that in mind, I am looking at that as a substantial win. I gotta pause it real quick. 1 second. So I'm looking at it as a pretty big win because it's kind of hard to find the motivation to keep studying these long hours. I mean, I'm regularly up to like midnight just studying, and it's definitely hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And if you do see the light, it feels so far away, it almost feels like it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, I should study, but, it's that far away. Yeah. I would definitely say that Zoom call was a wake-up call. And it kind of went to show, like, this hard work I'm putting in, these hundreds of hours I've put in over my time here, it has not gone to waste. And the light at the end of the tunnel just got a little bit brighter. And I can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's pretty cool. I gotta say, it was pretty nice to know that, they want me to work there. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So it is nice to know that. And they have a really good package. So I don't know if I'm at liberty to say. Let me look up something real quick. You can watch me do this one. I'm going to look up average CAA salary. Average CAA salary according to Google. That doesn't feel right. Let's go to ZipRecruiter. Here we go. Florida average. Nationwide average. There's location average. I want the nationwide average. What was it? That is not right. That is 100% inaccurate. Okay, here we go. According to Bagmask, that's probably the more accurate one. There we go. According to bagmask.com, quote, the national average yearly salary for an anesthesiologist assistant is over $200,000. Now that is according to bagmask.com. So, with that in mind, I'd say it was at or above average for pay. So, really crazy. And it's going to go up with experience. Obviously, that's one of their selling points, is the longer you stay with us, the more we make. I feel like that's kind of standard now. Got my hopes up. Holy crap. Oh. Dang. Anyway, sorry. I didn't close that. So that's one of the nice things that happened. I'm really appreciative that they made it happen. In that the people at NSU worked with the people at our anesthesia group and said, all right, we'll basically have an open call. So that was pretty nice. It was pretty non-invasive too. It wasn't like, all right, we're gonna sit you down. It wasn't like a timeshare presentation where it's like, all right, you gotta be here for 4 hours. It was, I think it honestly took about an hour. Actually, it was less. It was like 30 minutes. But you could have stayed longer and asked questions. So, regardless, it was pretty cool. And it definitely gave me some more motivation going into it. So, after that, we had our anesthesia phys exam 3. That one was, I didn't do as good on that one as I did on the second one, but I still did really good. I can't complain about my grade for that class. So, I've said it once and I'll forever say it. If you get into any anesthesia assistant program, take a look at the syllabus, figure out, don't even have to figure it out. For the beginning of the semester, do as good as you can on those beginning exams so that your stress during finals is not that bad. Do whatever it takes to do good on those first exams, because as much as you think, oh, there's only 6 finals, that's not that many, I can study for them all, I'll be okay. Don't put yourself in that position, because if you're wrong, you're SOL. So, like for instance, I've done good in anesthesia phys, so I can, let's say I had 10 hours available to study, all right, and I can split it between pharm and anesthesia phys. Well, now I've basically made it so I don't really have to study much for anesthesia phys. So I could do like a 2 hour towards anesthesia phys and put that extra chunk towards pharmacology. And that will work out a lot better for me. So, with all of that being said, I still didn't do that, did I? Oh, I did that. Anyway, with all of that being said, that's where we're at right now. So, what's on the horizon for me? Oh, darn. Dang. Anyway, what's on the horizon for me? Alright, I'll go ahead and wrap this up. 40 minutes. I mean, I've been gone for a month, so. I've got an APP exam coming up on this week. I've got INM on the horizon, and then towards the end of November, I've got Farm, and then Sim Lab Final possibly. So I'm gonna plan to make another video, ideally really soon here, because I fell behind. So, but yeah, that's been my update for you all, and is there anything else I can add? Not so much, I guess. I will say this, in an effort to maintain abrupt transparency. Maybe abrupt's not the right word, but to maintain that I am incredibly transparent about this, because I want this to be a completely unfiltered look at my life as a student. There was a period between last video and this video where I genuinely felt like I couldn't keep going. I hit the wall where it was basically, I don't think I'm not gonna say like I don't think I can do it, but I definitely hit the wall of, is it worth it? Is this gonna pan out? Do I have what it takes? I definitely hit that wall, and that sucked. It was not fun. I don't remember when I hit it. So I guess to some extent I do come on here and I show I don't necessarily record when I'm down in the dumps. I think I did at one point. But I just want to kind of make it clear that I don't see my classmates struggle. As I sit here recording this video, I haven't heard from a classmate saying, it was a shit day. I feel awful. I don't think I can keep going. I haven't heard them say that, but I've heard me think it. So it's kind of hard to feel alienated in that respect, but also mental health isn't horribly well talked about. But I definitely hit a point where I was just like, I can't do it. I don't feel like I can do it. It got to be too much. And it was rough. It was not fun, obviously. I feel like that's an understatement. So, to that end, what did I do to counter it? I didn't take a day off. I don't think I'm at a position right now where I really can. But I kind of did. A few days ago, I went and hung out with friends for a while. I've been taking a few more shorter days recently rather than just pounding out some longer days. Like there was one day I basically took as a rest day. The only thing I did was I went to class and that was it. I didn't do any outside studying, which was definitely helpful, of just trying to build back that kind of will to keep going. And one thing that did also help was, of course, the meeting with the anesthesia group. That was obviously very helpful. But man, it's tough. And anyone who says it's not, they're either lying to you, downplaying it, or they should have been picking a different profession like neurosurgery because they're clearly too smart.
It is tough, and it. Trying to think of how to word this. It's tough, but you can't stop. So I worked at Publix for a little while. I say a little while, it was like a couple years. And if you were really out of it, you could call in sick, right? You could call in sick. But if you look at this program, what do you get by calling in sick? There's no pause if you call in sick. You just have to keep going. And looking at that is kind of, I hate to say the word discouraging, but it's daunting. Where if you, yeah, I'm sitting here feeling like crap, knowing that if I need a break, all I'm going to be left with when I come back from the break is even more work. And that's kind of tough. So, it is definitely a challenge. But a big component of this program is learning your limits and learning how to take care of yourself. There is nothing this program could offer that weighs more than your well-being. If you can't take it, take a step back. It's not worth it to put yourself through that kind of hell. And I'm not going to delve too much into my own stuff because I don't feel like it's the time or the place. But, I mean, I've talked to my wife about it and I've said, look, if you see the path I'm going down and I am not okay, you can, how do I word it? You can basically push the pause button for me. And I feel like that's kind of a necessity in this type of program where you have to know when to push that pause button. Don't drive yourself insane over this course, over this program. And if you feel yourself starting to go down that path, take steps to correct it. Take the steps early. But at the end of the day, is a job worth your life? Is a job worth your sanity? Is a job worth your well-being? And I recognize that there are probably a few of you who are watching this saying, you know, it's not just a job, it's what you can provide, it's, you know, the salary, it's this, that, and the other. And while I see where you're going with that, I tend to disagree. Because if this program hits you in just the right way on just the wrong day, and God forbid you have the thought of hurting yourself, what good is that money to you if you're not there? The money ain't shit because you're not there. So it's not worth it if you're going to be doing something like that. So my advice to you is that if you are struggling, take the steps that you can and take care of yourself. At the end of the day, how much of a difference will it make if you make an 85 versus a 93 on that exam? It might not make a big difference. So it's not worth your mental well-being. Just take care of yourself. So I know that with that being said, I've struggled with mental health issues for the majority of my life. I mean, I had an anxiety disorder that started when I was young. I think early signs were like 5th grade, which is pretty young from my understanding. And despite all of that, here I am. I think I'm doing all right in this program, which is meant to be one of, I'm not going to say it's one of the harder programs, but it's meant to be a program that will put you to the test. There we go. So if you're out there and you're doubting your ability to do this, and you're doubting whether or not you can pull it off, use me as an example. So, if I can do it, you can do it. On that note, I think it's about time I wrapped up this video. It's gone for quite a long time. So that being said, if you've made it this far in the video, thank you. I don't know specifically when this video is going live. Looks like it'll probably be going in, looks like late January it'll be publishing. So, on that note, I'll probably go ahead and chop this video off right here and say, if you're looking to apply to this program, I wish you the best of luck in your application process. If you're already in this program and you're looking for some kind of reassurance that you've got this, here I am. And if you're struggling and you don't know where to go, turn to yourself and take care of yourself. Best way to reach me is on my Instagram. I will try to respond to comments on this channel, so keep that in mind. But Instagram is probably going to be the best way to reach me. I will post the Instagram in the video description if I can remember. And if I don't, just comment it, and then I'll reply to your comment with it. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So, I wish you nothing but the best. If you're applying, good luck. If you're in the program, you've got this. And if you're graduating, looking back, wondering how you made it through this, hopefully I can be there one day. Alright, on that note, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.